This is episode 65 of the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Kade, and today I'm talking with Alessandra Torre. Alessandra is an award-winning New York Times bestselling author of 24 novels. Her New York Times bestseller, Hollywood Dirt, was produced as a full-length movie in 2017. 2 more of her books have been optioned for film, and her books have been translated in 12 different languages in over 30 countries. Alessandra signed 2 six-figure publishing deals with industry giants, yet found her greatest success with self-publishing, hitting the New York Times list 7 times, all with self-published novels. Alessandra is a popular public speaker and presents frequently to universities, conventions, and author groups. She has online classes available and has built a community of over 20,000 aspiring and published authors. In 2019, Alessandra Torre, Inc. launched Inkerscon, an annual authors conference that broke industry standards by offering content both in person and digitally. In June of 2021, Inkerscon will return to Dallas, Texas. Alessandra is also the CEO of Authors AI and Binge Books. Binge Books is a community for readers with a focus on book discovery. Find out more at bingebooks.com or meet Marlo, an artificial intelligence editor at authors.ai. Now, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast, a podcast featuring interviews with equestrian authors who love all things horses and writing about them. In each episode, you'll hear inspirational stories from horsebook authors, including writing advice and marketing tips to help you write your very own horsebook. If you're an author, aspire to be an author, or simply love horsebooks, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Kade, and creative writing makes my spurs jingle. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Kade, and today I am so excited to have Alessandra Torre with me on the show. Hi, Alessandra. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you. So I met Alessandra through a webinar that she was doing on Goodreads. And I know some of my listeners have been asking for how do we use Goodreads? Like, how does it work? So Alessandra's here today to tell us about how we can effectively use Goodreads. But I also found out that she has a connection to horses and as well as being an author. So I think the perfect first question to ask is, Alessandra, how did horses touch your life?
So I was like the book nerd / horse nerd, right? So I started, my first exposure to horses was when I was like super young. I used to walk from to my friend's house and, we passed like the horse farm. So I would always stop and feed the horses. And I remember like calling the radio station and requesting like, "She Don't Know She's Beautiful," which is like a country song, for the horse. Like I was dedicated to the horse. So I remember the DJ being like, "So we're dedicating this to a horse." And I'm sure I was like a super cute 8-year-old at the time. And I'm like, yeah, and I didn't even know the horse's name, but that was kind of start. So it was I was those kids. I had riding lessons and then worked in barns for lessons. And we never really had money. So I was always working for my lessons, which was the best, but also meant that I always rode the worst horses, horses with problems, which was great because it really made me a better rider as I grew up. And I always rode wherever I could. So growing up, I was a barrel racer because that was the closest barn. So I did all 5 events and we did rodeos. And that was until I was 11 or 12. And then we moved to a town. And it was this tiny town in the middle of Georgia. And the only thing around was an Arabian barn. So I started working there and riding Arabians. And then I spent the next 4 or 5 years of my life with Arabians. And that was all English. They turned their nose up at anything Western. And the entire English world turned their nose up at us because we were riding Arabians and not big, giant, warm bloods. So I rode Arabians until I left for college. Sadly, now I live on an island. I live in Key West, Florida. And I was told day before yesterday that there's a lady 4 islands up who has horses, which is crazy because everyone lives on like a postage stamp here. So, so someone gave me her number the other day and says she does riding lessons. And I was like, I'm there. I've been looking into volunteering for the police force because they have horses, but it requires like 6 to 8 hours a week, which I don't have time to like breathe right now. So it requires 6 to 8 hours a week of volunteer work. And then eventually one day you get to ride the horse. I'm fine not riding. I mean, I just want to be around horses because you know what it's like when you miss them. But I just couldn't commit to that with any type of regular consistency. So I'm gonna see into riding. But that's my background with horses.
That's amazing. I mean, spoken like a true horse girl. I mean, I so identify with your story, and you were more involved with horses, are more involved with loving horses than I actually realized when we were messaging back and forth. That's amazing. And then you've had a breadth of experience. You switched from Western rodeo to Arabians English. You know, that's like, whoo, big difference.
Dressage and hunter jumper. I was never a successful jumper ever. Really, I was the one that like they would buy horses at auction. You know, horses that had been out to pasture for 4 years and couldn't canter without bucking, like because they couldn't, like they weren't used to carrying weight on their back. I was always given the troublesome horses, which is fine because I was just happy to ride and be able to be on a horse without, you know, having the money to pay for it. So,
oh yeah, we'll do whatever it takes to be around the horses. And I'm sure because of those experiences, you are an excellent rider. And I'm so excited that you found a training facility or a riding lesson.
Yeah, I'm really excited. See, you know when it shows up, they're always like, "Who is this person?" Like,
can they ride?
Can they know how to ride? But that's fine. I'll pay for lessons. I'll pay for lessons now, just so I can be on a horse. So
that's amazing. And the small things that you miss about horses, the smell, the grooming, the all the other things that go into being around horses, are just that peace that they bring us. So that's so exciting. I mean, we had more of a connection than I even realized. I love that. Also, you are an incredible author, and you're very accomplished. You're the award-winning New York Times bestselling author of 22 novels. Listen in, listeners, because she's doing it. So tell us about what kickstarted your author career. And you do write in different genres. Tell us a little bit about your genres of choice in the books you've written.
Sure. So I write. I need to update my bio because I just pub 24, I think, number 24, I think, maybe 23. I've kind of lost count, but I write, majority of those are romance. I'm trying to move more into suspense. Suspense is my reading background, but I started 8 years ago in 2012, and it was kind of just a whim. Like I was in between jobs and I had a summer ahead of me, and I was always a reader. Like I just loved to read, but I never had any confidence in my writing. And it wasn't until I learned about self-publishing and that I could like not go the traditional route of sending my book out to, hundreds of agents and getting rejections and publishers because I had no confidence. But I knew I enjoyed writing. So I just sat down and said, this summer I'm going to try to write my own book and I'll self-publish it and I'll do it under a pseudonym. Alessandra Torre is a pen name. And I will never, ever, ever tell anyone that I've ever written this book. And that was the plan, like to just a secret book. No one but me and my husband would know about it. And it ended up being just this great success. I ended up getting a publisher and an agent. And then it was like, well, I have to tell my parents now because I'm not going to go back to work. Like this is going to be my new job. So I told my family and they were, of course, amazingly supportive, and I just started writing. But then it was a romance novel. So I suddenly had romance readers and I started writing another one. And before I knew it, here I am 8 years later. So it's been a wonderful industry, and I've had highs and lows, and I've struggled and I've not struggled. So it's been good. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've tried to learn from all of my mistakes. And that's one of the reasons why I do webinars and classes now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is congratulations. I mean, that is incredible. That's a lot of books. You must write pretty quickly to have now 24 books out there. And you are like a hybrid, right? You do some independent publishing and you also have traditionally published books. Is that right?
That's correct. I'm hybrid. So I have 3 books with Hachette, 2 with Harlequin, and then I just signed a 2-book deal with Thomas & Mercer, which is an Amazon imprint. So I just published my first of those 2 books with them. So then I've got another one coming.
Congratulations. That is so exciting. One of your books, I mean, just to keep talking a little bit about your success here, and I think listeners would love to hear this. One of your books, the New York Times bestseller Hollywood Dirt, was produced as a full-length movie in 2017. oh my gosh, and 2 more of your books are optioned for film. How does that make you feel to see your story, your words, your characters being put into film, into a visual format? How does that feel?
It's so for I know a lot of authors listen, and one of the most annoying questions that, like a normal person, when they're like, "Oh, you write books, like, are any of your books going to be made into a movie?"
Yeah.
That question I used to get all the same time. It was so annoying because it was like, is it not enough that I've written a book? Like everyone's like, "Oh, when's the movie going to come out?" And we went down the movie route with The Girl in 6E, which is that red cover behind me. That's the girl. That's one of the foreign covers, but it looks like that for The Girl in 6E. And we were going like the studio route. So I had a film agent. And so if you ever want your book to be a movie, first step, get a film agent. So I got a film agent. The second step, that film agent typically puts together a package. So they'll grab a screenwriter, they'll grab a production company, and then they'll try to get like an A-list actress or actor. And then they'll put them all together, and then they'll try to sell that package to a big studio. Mm. And normally that packaging is not great for you as the writer financially, but it's oftentimes right now the best way to get a movie made. So we went down this really long path. We had a script written, and the script, like, here's my book and here's the script. And for those of you who can't see me, drastically different. Like, my favorite character in the book ends up being the villain in the movie, right? Like huge differences between the two. But I understand this book is my perfect baby how I want it, and the movie can be their perfect baby how they want it. I am not emotionally attached to the book being made the way the movie is. But we went down this like just ridiculously long path, and it took years. I mean, we were in year 3 when we finally signed the paperwork with Europa Corp, which was really the perfect studio for this book. It's the studio that made La Femme Nikita and Lucy, and they had strong female leads, and they weren't afraid of sexuality. And Luc Besson, fantastic director who I cannot remember the movie that he did with Natalie Portman, but it's fantastic. He was going to be on it, and this was just great. Everything was great. And we signed the paperwork, and within 4 or 5 days, we got the news that the head of the studio had left unexpectedly, and it was his baby. And then he died 2 weeks later from brain cancer. Like, it just suddenly came out. No one knew about it. And that movie died with him, really. It was like, then they had it was tied up, but there's nobody there who cared about it. And they were like going through huge upheaval because he had suddenly left. So I was really over. I mean, at that point, it was just such an emotional roller coaster. I was kind of over Hollywood, and not because of that's the situation out of their hands, but it's more like, if you ever go through this process, you're going to meet with agents, and they're going to act like they're about to make you the best, biggest thing in the world, right? And it's a lot of promises that typically never, ever come to fruition. But it was very clear, if we make the movie, maybe I would be allowed on set a day or 2, maybe. I'd be an executive producer, but honestly, it's just a title. Nobody cares about what you think. I mean, it was made very clear my lack of involvement that would be in the movie. And I was okay with that, like whatever it takes to get the deal done. So then I got an email just out of the blue from a few women who were starting up a movie studio called Passion Flicks, and they wanted to make a movie out of Hollywood dirt. And I was like, sure, I'll get on the phone with you guys. I'll take a phone call if anybody, I'll get on the phone with you guys. So I chatted with them, and they're saying how they want to make a movie that's exactly like the book, and they want me to be involved in every step of the way. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. And I'm thinking, this is never going to happen. Like, this sounds great, amazing. No way it's going to happen, right? Like, it's just not going to happen. And so then they sent me over a contract, and I signed it, and they sent me money, and I took it, and they sent me, a script that I read that was exactly like my book in every way, same dialogue, same everything. And I made some edits, and that I'm watching audition tapes from actresses and actors, and I'm the whole time like, isn't going to happen, right? There's going to be an issue. There's going to be funding problems. Something's going to happen. They're on location. They're scouting locations. I'm still like, yeah, this is not. And it wasn't until they were like, sent me the schedule for filming, and I booked a flight, and I was it's like 2 a.m, and I'm standing in a Dunkin' Donuts factory, like an old Dunkin' Donuts factory. It's freezing cold. It's like 28 degrees. We can't turn the heat on in the building because it's too loud, and the cameras need like absolute silence. And we're filming my heroine, who's in this little like sundress because it's supposed to be, summer. And they're saying lines from my book, and the lights are on, the cameras roll. And that was really when I was like, oh my gosh, like, I think this is actually going to happen. Like, this is really going to happen. But it wasn't until that moment that I really believed it, that I thought, okay, like, I don't think they can back down at this point in time. Like, I think we're all too committed here. And it was the best experience of my life. It really was, because I was able to be involved like they had promised, like they had said on the very first call. I was able to be involved in everything, whether it was the music that played when you watched the movie, or the credits, or, what the movie poster, and how lines were delivered. It was amazing. And I was part of all of it. And it was fantastic. They're a great company. They focus on making, all they do is they make romance novels from romance books, and they stay as true to the book as possible. And they do a fantastic job. And that movie came out, I think it's been 2 or 3 years since the movie came out. It's on Amazon now. It's also on their Passionflix streaming service, and it's great. It was hard for me to watch because I was so nervous about it. Like, and I'm in it. I have a cameo, very brief, but if you watch it, keep an eye out for me. It was my acting debut. No lines, because then I would have to be SAG nominated or something. Yeah, so it was really great. That was a really long answer to your question.
No, that was amazing. Like, what an amazing experience to like kind of have the high of it going this one direction, and then the kind of the low, and then the connection. This obviously was meant to be made into a movie because it happened. And I love that who you ended up going with had you involved. I have to believe that I think movies made from books would only be stronger from having the author on set to guide the music and the lines and the choosing of the characters. I mean, what an incredible experience. I'm glad you shared all that with us.
Yeah. It's also like, it made me realize the talent that's involved. Like, I would watch a scene and I'd be like, it's not right, but I couldn't tell you why it's not right. I mean, it's the same skill that we develop as authors, where we can read a scene and be like, oh, this is the issue. Remove this line, remove that line. But I don't have that skill when I'm watching, but that's the director. Like, I'd watch and I'd be like, that wasn't right, but I don't know why. Like, they're saying the lines, they're saying them with feeling. And all it was like, he reached over and like put his hand on her arm, and the director stepped in and she's like, she's not ready for that. Like, you guys aren't at that place yet. You know what I mean? And I was like, you're right. That's what it is. Like, but I couldn't pick up on it. I was just like, that wasn't right. That wasn't right. So it made me really recognize and appreciate. And there's another person there, and all their job to do is to maintain consistency. So, because we filmed the same scene, like 15 times, like from different camera angles and things like that. And if her hair is over her shoulder now, you know what I mean? Like 3 hours later, we're still filming it, and the girl will be like, wait, she just moved her hair. You know what I mean? So it's like, her hair had to be here, or the pin was like this, or, like, I might have adjusted my sleeve or something, and it needs to be the same. So it was really interesting just to see all of those things that I wasn't aware of in the movie business.
Oh, that's fascinating. What a cool experience. And it seems like, I mean, you've had, and you still have, I mean, you're growing this, you have an amazing author career and experience in front of you. I mean, you've signed big contracts. Let's see here. You've signed 6-figure publishing deals. I mean, you are a success, and you've also embraced independent publishing. So you've got this hybrid model going on, and your books have been made into a movie. And in just 2 minutes, we're going to talk about the other business endeavors and how you're supporting authors is happening. But this is like everyone's dream. Do you have any advice on, I mean, did you do anything special for this to come to fruition? Like, how did this show up in the world for you?
It was really, first of all, I've gotten really lucky. I came into publishing at a really great time in 2012 and 2013. And I know that because books that I publish now aren't as successful as books that I used to publish, and they're better. Like, my books now are better than they used to be, but they don't do as well, even though I now have a bigger audience. So it was easier to succeed at a time when the market wasn't as saturated, right? Like, you have to do more. In 2012, 2013, you could have a great book and no marketing, or you could have a crappy book and great marketing, right? And those two, and if you had half of that equation, it would work. Nowadays, you have to have a great book, you have to have great marketing, and then you have to have some luck. Like, that's just that's just the truth of the matter. Like you got to have a little bit of luck. It also has to hit the right notes. Like I was talking to Melanie Harlow the other day, who just had a book hit #1 in Amazon. And I was talking to her, what made this book different versus, and she said, the book prior to this, I put more money behind it. It was just as well written. It had just as great a cover, but she goes, but I think this one book hit just all of the hot points, right? Mm-hmm. Like it was the right trope. It was single dad. I hit a few key pain points in the blurb. And she's like, I think this was just the right book at the right time. And even though I put more money behind the other book and I put more effort, it was pushing a book that wasn't as easy to grow. So it's gotta be this perfect mix of events. And some books, I was talking to another author, Stephanie Holmes, the other day, and she's a great speaker. She's not an equestrian, but if you ever have her on, and her thing is, she's like, don't give up before the miracle. And her miracle was book like 28.
Wow.
Okay. And she was writing and writing and writing. She could never break above a certain plateau. It didn't matter how many books she had out. She just couldn't get over this earning level. Like she just couldn't do it. And then book 28, she's like, we're just like every other book. Like there wasn't anything amazing or spectacular about this book. Book 28 came and suddenly just like, it just clicked. Like that book took off, and then her backlist took off. And then suddenly she was making 3 times what she was making for the last 4 years, and she was like, and I could have just given up. I could have been like, you know what? I've given this a go. I've watched all the classes. I've, marketed my butt off. I've done everything I could do. I've written 27 books. I think I've given it enough of an effort, right? Like, let me go get some other job. But she didn't give up. And book 28 was the book where it all happened. So I think for me, I've gotten really, really lucky. I mean, I have to say that I've worked my butt off, and I am still working my butt off, but it's a combination of, I do have talent. I mean, mm-hmm. I've worked with a lot of new authors now to know there is a talent aspect, right? You can improve your craft, but you either have your job is either a lot easier because you have natural talent, or it's a lot harder because you don't. And reading is really what gave me, I think, a lot of my natural talent is I read so dang much as a kid. If I wasn't at the barn, or if I was at the barn, I had a book in hand, I mean, I just always read, and I think that really helped me. But it's just trying different things and being in the right place at the right time with the right book makes your life a lot easier. And you might not have written that right book yet, or you might be somebody like, your book might be 6 years old and somebody in California reads it and it's the right person. And before you know it, like your book's Forrest Gump, right? And suddenly everyone in the world knows it.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared that with us. Thank you so much. I love that. Don't give up, or don't stop before the miracle happens. That's amazing advice. And that's true. I imagine everyone feels like that every once in a while. It's like, oh, I've given this a go. I've done everything there is to do. Why should I do this? But that's the thing about art and creativity and being inspired. And, you have to just keep believing in your dream and not give up, and then miracles do happen. So I love that you shared that with us. And you are clearly very, very, very talented to have had the success that you've had. I mean, I think there's an element in luck with anyone who is successful. There's a lot of trials, there's a lot of errors, there's a lot of things going on in the background that get you to that place. And it's that element of being unstoppable, right? And just keep going. I think that is the most important thing for authors to know. Just keep going. You get better. Your books get better. You reach more people. All these possibilities are out there if you just keep putting out your work. And so thank you so much for sharing that.
You have to love it. Like that's the other thing. Like if Stephanie hated what she was doing, like she would have gotten burnt out on book 8, right? Like, so a lot of people join this industry like, oh, I want easy money and, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's all great. And you can get that, right? Like it's not gonna be easy, but money can come. But if you're not having a good time, like you're gonna hate this industry. You really are. And you're gonna hate yourself, and you're gonna put undue pressure on your life. So be here because you love it. It's like horses never really make us money, right? Like, so like we're not in it to make money. Like if we end up somehow stumbling across some magic equation, but you need to look at writing the same way. Like this is a hobby, that actually doesn't cost you anything. I mean, you can pay money in advertising, things like that. But for the most part, you could write books and publish them with very little investment, right?
Mhm.
So how many hobbies actually have the potential to earn you money, while you're having a great time and meeting great people? And that's really how I try to look at it and try to help people look at it. Because they're just getting in here because they want to quit their job in a year and they want to make money, like you are setting yourself up for failure, if not financial failure, like emotional failure,
Mhm.
because it's it's not a good fit.
Yeah, yes, that's the perfect analogy. Horses, we love horses, we do horses. They definitely don't make us any money, and writing can be very similar. That's perfect. And this is what I love so much about you. You are so supportive of other authors, and you share a ton of information with other authors. And in 2019, you launched Inkerscon. Tell us about this annual conference for authors and what they can learn, and then what you offer. I mean, we got connected through a webinar that you offered where I learned so much. So, and thank you for being a service to other authors. I think that's so special.
4 years ago, I launched Alessandra Torre Inc., which is a company that in a community that has blog posts, online classes, webinars, a lot of free content. I also have paid courses, step-by-step courses in writing, publishing, and marketing. And that really was one of those things when I got into the industry, I wanted like a writing for dummies and I couldn't find it, right?
Yeah.
But like craft books freaked me out, like so much of I needed someone to be like, this is how you write a scene, right? Like
Mhm.
basics, like how the heck do I describe a room the right way? Like, so that's what I needed. And I didn't find it. So it was like, once I was 8 or 9 books in and I felt like I knew enough, then I created those courses. But what it did was it caused me to really look at my own experience. Like, how do I write a scene? Like, because at this point, it's just like second nature. Like, so it takes you back. But I quickly realized my depth of knowledge is only so deep. Creating those courses caused me to start taking other people's courses and diving into what was available in our industry. And I was like, I really want, I don't want to just regurgitate something I've learned from someone else. Like I want to bring all these people in and have them speak directly to this audience. And so we looked at, initially I was going to bring a bunch of speakers and best-selling authors and social media experts together and record like, individual lessons or classes. But then it was like, man, like we have everybody together. Like that seems like we're cheating out. Like we could bring authors in, right? And they could just watch so before we knew it, Inkerscon was born. So it's an annual conference. It's held in Dallas every year. So we have a live conference, and then we also record everything at the conference, and we also present it to our online audience. And that's for people like me that don't like to travel. I do travel to Inkerscon because I got to be there, but normally I really hate traveling. We also do everything 100% online, and so we have a huge audience that's international also that normally doesn't get access to conferences and things like that. It's almost selfish because I'm like, gosh, what are the things that would cause me to get my career to the next level? And that is all I do basically when I create the curriculum. I'm like, I need to know how the heck to market audiobooks. So who's the best person to teach me and everyone else how to market audiobooks? So we're very business focused. Like we have craft classes, we have business classes, advertising classes, and marketing classes. So those are the 4 modules.
That is so amazing. I'll link to Inkerscon in the show notes so people can definitely check that out. But it's very professional, and I love that you have the virtual and the in-person experience. But the topics that you're talking about are really next level. Like I really truly agree with that. Like share a couple of the titles of the sessions that you offer.
So every year is different. We have a completely new lineup, but like for our 2020 conference, we had Branding 101, which is taught by Meredith Wild, who is a #1 New York Times bestseller. Self-published. She hit #1 self-published. And she made 2 other authors #1 New York Times bestsellers under her imprint. It's amazing. She's
Wow.
fantastic. So she was just all about like author branding, book branding, like creating a cohesive brand for your authors. But then we also had like what to Quit by Becca Smine, who's amazing. That was like really inspirational. Like what to stop doing, like what are the blockers. in your career and in your mindset and in your processes that are keeping you from achieving what you want to achieve. And that was one of the most, and then we had like a productivity one, 400% more productive, like how to, and that was taught by Mal Cooper, who publishes like over 30 books a year. Like she's a machine. I don't know how she does it. So it's everything from that. We had a sprint workshop, which was 2 authors who sprint together, but you could also sprint on your own. That helped me. That was me. I was like, I hear about sprinting all the time. I need someone to like dumb it down for me, like step by step, what the heck do I do? Cause I've tried this sprinting thing and I'm still like fixing popcorn, in the middle of my sprint sessions. So yeah. So, and then we also have like advanced and beginner advertising classes, an accounting class that talks all about, tax write-offs and how you should set up your business financially. And so, and we're focused on fiction, but I have people email me all the time that are like, oh, I'm a nonfiction author. And what I always tell them is look through the curriculum and just see. And we offer money back guarantee. So if you aren't sure after looking through the curriculum, just enroll, check it out. And I don't care if you watch every single class and then you come to me and say you want your money back, whatever. Like we want you to be happy, so we can be happy. So yeah. So even though it's focused on fiction, I would say that we have at least, I'd say 5 or 10% of our attendees are actually nonfiction.
Wow, that is so cool. And why did you decide to support other authors? There's no need to feel competitive with each other. Like we can all unite. And we were just talking about this before we started the interview. Every single one of us could be given the same writing prompt, and because of who we are, our personality, and our life experience, every book would be completely different. So just, why was it passion for you to help other authors succeed?
So early on, when I first self-published, I knew no one in the industry. I was writing under a pen name. So it wasn't like I couldn't even tell like my family and friends about it. Right. So I was this like island on my own. And it took me, I think, a year and a half before I realized that there was an author community online. I mean, that I could connect with. I went to an authors conference and I met a few authors there, but I really still, at that point in time, self-publishing was really like frowned upon. And the conference that I was at was RT Book Reviews, which is almost all traditional, right? So any hint of self-publishing, they were kind of like, So it took a while to find like my group online. But when I did, it made such a dramatic impact on my career because like when Amazon ads first came out, like now everybody does it, but early on when they very first came out, in order to do Amazon ads, you had to pay $7,500 to, well, it was actually like $23,000, but you could get together with a couple other authors and divide it into 3. So it was like $7,500 to do Amazon ads. And I was like, gosh, like, I don't know, should I do it? Well, I didn't have to do it because one of my new author friends did it. And she came back and she was like, Alessandra, I could have lit $7,500 on fire on Facebook and gotten more attention than I did through those Amazon ads. And I was like, great. Like that was like, I was like, man, if we can all be upfront and share what's working for us, but also what doesn't work for us, like there's no need for us all to make the same dumb mistakes. Right. And so that really kind of helped me so much when I joined forces or when I really had open conversation with other authors. And now with the internet, and I say with the internet like it just came out, but now there's no reason why we can't be a community. And I know I said it to you earlier, but we're not selling cars, right? Our readers don't buy one book a year where we're all competing for that same reader. Like readers can read all of us, and there's room for great books to succeed in this market. And it's really easy to get competitive and to look at other authors and how many reviews they have or placements they're getting or publishing contracts they're getting, but that's the theft of joy. Like we have to cheer each other on because if you're doing a cross promotion with another author and their books take off, then when they talk about your books, that's really going to help your books take off, So we need to all help each other grow and learn. And so that was kind of where Alessandra Torre, the Inkers community came from. And we have a Facebook group. If you're on Facebook and you search Alessandra Torre Inkers, there's over 14,000 authors, and it's just a fantastic place. Like go search the group for, I don't know, like nonfiction editor, and you're going to find a post where somebody was looking for a nonfiction editor and people recommend or don't recommend editors. And that's what we need. We need a place where we can all get questions answered, and there are no dumb questions.
I love that. I mean, what an amazing service that you're providing. And it also, these communities help our own careers grow too. I mean, we're never done learning. Educate, educate, educate. There's always so much to learn, and things are always changing too. So I love that you're like totally on the Authors Unite train. I am too. I think we're stronger when we work together. So thank you for that. Now, since we're on the helping other authors unite train, let's talk about Goodreads.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, this is coming. I'm so fascinated with you. I wanted to ask you all the information about you too. It's so fascinating talking to you, and you've had so many experiences. And the thing about Goodreads is this is a topic that was previously covered in Inkerscon, and I found it's so helpful. I mean, you're doing a lot of interesting things with Goodreads. So I think a really good place to start around Goodreads is there's a lot of, I think, myths around Goodreads, or people or authors are kind of like, oh, I don't know. So can you talk about some of the myths around Goodreads and how you can bust those myths, because you bust those myths?
So first of all, anyone listening, if you aren't familiar with Goodreads, because I was not familiar with Goodreads when I first came into this world, Goodreads is a website. It is owned by Amazon. It's a book discovery website where authors and readers, mainly readers, can find, discuss, recommend, and share books. Okay. So 100% Goodreads focus, all it is books. Okay. That's what it is. So if you are a author, then you are already on there. If your books are published, they are already on Goodreads. I get emails all the time. How do I get my books added to Goodreads? They're there. Okay. So they can be there with you, or they can be there without you. All right. So that's what Goodreads is. It's goodreads.com. Number one myth about Goodreads, first of all, is that authors should avoid it. That is the first thing I hear all the time. And I see it in my group and other groups all the time, is people go, what were you doing on Goodreads? That was your first mistake. Never, ever, ever go on Goodreads. And authors love to tell other authors this. And I'm the first person to stand on my soapbox and say that is 100% incorrect. As I said before, Goodreads it's a social media network, and it's a book discovery site that is 100% focused on books. So when someone goes to Facebook and you're talking about your books on Facebook, they're going to scroll past your book, or when scrolling to your book, they're going to pass cat videos and political stuff and everything else. And their mindset is on a ton of other things, where when they go to Goodreads, they're there for one purpose, and that is to find a book, to review a book, discuss a book with someone else, right? But typically to find their next book. So why on earth would we not want to be there as an author? Well, the reason that people say stay away from Goodreads is because they say it's troll central. By troll, I mean it's full of horrible, hateful readers who love to bash your books. First of all, trolls are everywhere. So are they on Goodreads? Sure, absolutely. They're also every other corner of the internet, right? And non-internet. So can you get on Goodreads and read negative reviews about your book? Sure, absolutely. If you are an author that really shies away or freaks out by negative reviews, you can filter your views when you look at your book, and you can only look at 4- and 5-star reviews. So that's one way you can do it. I personally like reading negative reviews. I read all my reviews, negative and positive. But it is true that a Goodreads review, a negative review, can sting a little more, because sometimes they add gifts and things like that, so it brings it to life. But it also brings to life those 4- and 5-star reviews, right? So you can have great gifts just as easily as you can have bad gifts. But the major myths that I try to dispel with Goodreads are that authors should avoid it. Absolutely not. Authors should not avoid it. If you Google your most recent release right now, I guarantee you that Goodreads is going to be in the top 5 search results on Google. If not the first, well, Amazon's going to be the first, but Goodreads is most likely going to be the second. And the same with your author name. If you Google your author name, Goodreads is going to be there. So it is a huge search engine magnet. And people are looking at your profiles and looking at your books, whether you are on that site or not. So you might as well be on that site, have a presence, have control over that content, and then reach those readers through the tools that they offer. Another reason that authors stay away from Goodreads is because it's confusing. And that is not a myth. It is 100% true. Goodreads is confusing. Yes, I will agree with that all day long. There's a learning curve, and I get that. but you don't have to be a Goodreads expert.
Yeah. And it is a little confusing, but it's not something that you can't figure out by asking other friends, watching the video, which I'll provide from Alessandra, and, just doing a little bit of research. You can figure these things out, but it can, like any new technology or platform, it can feel a little overwhelming. Let's talk about Goodreads best practices. I mean, I think, being there, you're there whether you have a presence or not. Let's talk about like what is the bare minimum you would recommend any author have? Yeah.
Yeah, so the bare minimum, first you need to claim your author profile if you haven't already. It's pretty easy. You just visit the author page and click, this is me, it's like a link somewhere, and then prove that it's you. You need to have an updated bio, updated profile picture, and your books are, again, already there, but you can go in and clean up their descriptions as much as you want, that sort of thing. So the bare minimum is making sure that you have up-to-date information, that your website's there, that your social media is there, so they can find you in other places and they can follow you properly. That is bare minimum. Second thing that I would do with every release, I would share the Goodreads link and add it to your website and things like that for your release. Another really powerful marketing tool is to do a giveaway. They're very easy. Goodreads runs them and they're massive for exposure on the site. So I would do a giveaway pre-release. It needs to end before the book is released, because the number one benefit and biggest benefit of the giveaway is that every single person who adds your book to their list, which they do when they enter the giveaway, it will email them on release day and let them know that that book is live. So you absolutely want your giveaway to end prior to the release. Otherwise, it's pretty much almost useless. I would say other bare minimum practices is create a blog post when your book releases. That will also send out an email to all of your followers with whatever content is in that blog post. And then make sure, the final thing, make sure that your Goodreads profile, when you're looking at each book page, and especially with your upcoming release, this is mainly an upcoming release thing, you want to make sure that the release date is accurate, which you can just hit edit details, make sure the release date's accurate, and make sure that your ASIN, which is your Amazon like social security number, your ASIN, and if you have an ISBN number, that those are both on that profile. Because when Goodreads emails out all of your followers or anyone who's ever been interested in that book and added it to their list, and they say, this book is live, there's going to be beautiful buy buttons in that email, and it'll say, get this book on Amazon or whatever. And unless you have that information, the ASIN and the ISBN number in that book profile, those buy links will not go directly to your book. We're going to go to a search page on Amazon, which is going to bring up sponsored results. Your book might be 10th, on that list of results. So you want to be sure you put that information, and you want to be sure your release date is accurate, because that's when it's going to email those readers.
Yeah. And I think right now you're talking about adding a new release to Goodreads, right? So let's talk about that. So how does an author add a book to Goodreads when they know they have a new one coming? So let's say somebody wanted, so they're new to Goodreads, they just set up their profile with the things that you listed are must have, and they want to add their first book. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like? Because I think a lot of the authors that reached out looking for an episode on Goodreads are the ones that don't have a bio and just have the little silhouette of the person as their picture on their profile. They don't have any exposure on Goodreads right now.
Yeah. So if your book is up on pre-order, then it's easy. It's already on Goodreads. So you just have to link that book to your profile. But let's say you're writing a book, right? You're not anywhere close to putting it up on pre-order. If you're writing a book and you already have published books, then it's easy. Okay. Then all you have to do is just go up to the search bar, search for your book title. It's not going to come up, right? Because it doesn't exist yet. And then but on that search results page, there'll be a link on the right side that says add a new book, or didn't see the book you wanted or whatever, add a new book. And you'll click on that and you'll put in all the details to your new book. And within typically 15 minutes, your book profile page is live on the site. And sometimes my book says untitled romance, right? I don't have a title yet. The description says, a second chance romance coming summer 2021. Yeah, that's all I have. And I don't have a cover yet. That's all fine. You then have at least a URL and a link that you can start to have people send traffic to, and your followers will see. Now, it is much more difficult. It's not impossible, but it's much more difficult if you are a debut author who has never written a book. And that's because Goodreads doesn't trust you yet, right? Like there are a lot of people who are like, I'm going to write a book, and then they don't, right? Or they are halfway through a book and it never happens. So if you've never published a book before, you still can get a book page on Goodreads pre-release, but it is more difficult. They really won't let you add it until your book is up on pre-order somewhere. It doesn't have to be Amazon. It can be Kobo, it can be Barnes and Noble, but your book needs to be up on pre-order somewhere.
That's awesome. Thank you for kind of explaining how that all works in there. And then a lot of times, talk to us about like cover updates, because Goodreads, once you submit cover art for your book, you are not able to change that.
Okay, so one thing to know about Goodreads is it prides itself on being the world's biggest book database. Okay, it's very serious about that. Okay, so what that means is it wants like historical records and different editions every time there's been any change or whatever else. So it's why sometimes you look at a book page and it has like 12 editions, it's because the covers changed or something else. And it wants this historical, I have no idea why, wants a historical record of every change it's ever made. And it doesn't like when we willy-nilly and change things on our own. And it doesn't like us changing things that might not be accurate or that might not be proven by being on the sales page. So if you, when you first create a book page, you can leave the book cover blank, or you can put a placeholder cover in. So placeholder covers look nicer, it's like coming soon or cover coming soon or whatever. But what that then means is if you're ready to update it with the final cover, you have to reach out to the Goodreads librarians, and one of them has to do it. You cannot update that cover your own. And you cannot, if you recover the book at a future date, you have to reach out and the librarians have to change it for you. And they will only change it if it is already online on the retailer sites to prove that this is an actual change. So it's a bit of a bear, but there is groups on Goodreads. One of the groups is the librarian group, and you can reach out to them for pretty much any change that you need to make that you don't have the ability to change. There are certain things, book description, release date, things like that you can change on your own. Other things you have to have a librarian fix.
Yeah, and thanks for explaining that, because I think that's a question that I get a lot, is like, how do I update my covers?
Why can I change this? This is crazy.
So you have to get in touch with a librarian group on Goodreads if you update your covers or need to swap out the cover. On one of my books, I accidentally, I think I uploaded like the wrong size file, and it looked all weird, and then I had to go through the whole process of reaching somebody to put the right one in there.
Like, I love Goodreads, but there's so many things I don't like about Goodreads, but it's okay. Like, it is what it is. It's the organism as it exists. So I'll play by their rules, but yeah, that's one of those funky things. And it's one of the reasons why people are like, yeah.
Yeah, it's what important thing if we're talking about Goodreads to mention. During your webinar, you talked about newsfeed triggers and email triggers, which was so interesting. So once you have your profile set up and you've got your books added, there's a lot of cool triggers that you can use to reach your readers. How can authors put those triggers into use?
So there are two things. So one is newsfeed triggers. Just like Facebook, Goodreads has a newsfeed where you can scroll through and see everything that your friends and followers are doing. Okay. Friends or people you follow are doing. There's a lot of different ways that you can get your book in those news feeds. Anytime someone reviews your book or comments on a review of your book or likes a review of your book is going to appear in their news feed. So that's huge. It also means every time you do any of those activities, if you like someone's review of your book, if you comment on someone's review of your book, if you update your own review of your book, it's going to show up in the newsfeed of all of your followers. Okay. So I call those newsfeed triggers. So it's really great to interact on the reviews that people leave for you. This is one of those kind of touchy, because there is a weird climate on Goodreads with authors communicating with readers where some readers are touchy about that. So my rule of thumb is I like comments. I like reviews I'll like a review without stressing out about it. I only comment on 5-star reviews, and I try not to be creaky about it, So I'll just say, thank you so much. I'm so glad you love this book. Thank you for such a great review. I don't comment on 4 or 3, and I definitely don't comment on 2 or 1-star reviews. But liking reviews puts it into your newsfeed. So if you're going on Goodreads and you've just got 5 minutes and you want to kind of do something to boost your book's visibility, go like some comments on reviews. And this is another thing you can do to help out your fellow author friends, like some comments on their review. And that also gives you a little bit of exposure or comment on other reviews of your friends. Don't say something like, I'm so glad you like this book. You would also like my book. Don't do that, okay? But if you just like it and say, what a great review, that gives your author name some exposure. So it's a great thing to do. Plus, it also helps out your friends. So that's another good thing to do. But that's a newsfeed trigger. Another newsfeed trigger is any general status update. You have the ability to do a status update just like you do on Facebook, where you can talk about anything, a giveaway you're doing, like a new chicken that you just bought, whatever you want it to be. You can do what we call a general status update on Goodreads and post it there. That shows up in your newsfeed. So those are newsfeed triggers. And anytime anyone enters your giveaway, it's a newsfeed trigger. So it shows up in all of their newsfeeds, which is huge. And anytime anybody likes their entry in the giveaway, it shows up in their newsfeed. So all of their followers' newsfeed. So it can quickly grow viral on the site. Email triggers are triggered by a book release. When your book releases, it emails all of your followers. If you create an event or if you write a blog post, that's an email trigger. So those are specific email triggers that will get into your readers' email inboxes. You will not see their email address. You don't have any control over that, but it is something that triggers it on the Goodreads side.
Yeah, and that's so great that you explained that. I mean, I get weekly emails from Goodreads where I see the people that I'm following, their most recent blog posts, and I can also see, what they're reading and their new releases and all. I mean, that's a way to get into people's emails without having an email newsletter, although you should have an email newsletter, but that's also a way to get beyond the app that is Goodreads and get into people's like actual email inboxes. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's free. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's free marketing. I will share your resources that you have available on Goodreads, but thank you for pulling back the curtains a little and give us like a peek into using it and busting some of those myths. Is there anything else like you would advise authors to be aware of on Goodreads as they're going in to start engaging with the site, or something that I should have asked but didn't?
It's a site that doesn't take a lot of time. You can spend 15 minutes a week on Goodreads and knock out everything that you need to do. So it's not a site that takes a lot of time. The number one thing people say is, oh, I don't have any followers on Goodreads. So how do I get followers on Goodreads? Best way to do that is just be an active Goodreads user from a reader standpoint. Like when you are reading a book, mark it as reading, leave status updates, leave a review. As an author, be aware that we have a certain code of ethics among authors. So, and that code of ethics says that we don't bash other authors' books. So what I do is a lot of times though, I'll add a book to my list. I don't know that I'm not going to like a book, right? So I've added it to my list. I'm reading it and I realize that I hate this book with every ounce of my being, right? So at that point in time, I just quietly stop talking about it. I remove it from my reading shelf. I finish the book or don't finish the book, but I don't leave a review. I might mark it as read, but that's it. I rave about the books that I love. I leave 5-star reviews for books that I really love. If I like a book, I'll leave a good review, but I don't leave stars. Some authors get torn out of frame for 4-star reviews. I personally don't ever. I'll take a 3-star review. I'll take any review. But some authors think 4-star reviews are bad. I'll leave a 5-star review or no star, but a text review if I really like a book. So that's just something to be aware of so that you don't get a black mark or whatever,
Mm-hmm. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah. You have to think before you do things. And you mentioned a couple of things in this interview that I love, like, don't comment on somebody else's post and then put a picture of your book on their page, like don't do that stuff. That's like not nice author behavior. And then don't tear apart another author. I mean, we all know how much goes into building a book, writing a book, and again, we always have to keep in mind it's subjective. Not every book that you like, will I like, not every book I like, will you like. Reading, writing, the whole thing is subjective. So let's be kind to each other. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Alessandra, I feel like I could talk to you forever. I've so enjoyed having you on the show. Can you talk to us about what's next for you? Where are you going? What are you thinking? What is, what's up with your author career? Where are you heading?
Well, my book production has cut down significantly. If you're looking for a book, I'll be remiss if I didn't tell you about Every Last Secret. So Every Last Secret is a domestic suspense. It does not have horses in it, but it's still really good. It's a domestic suspense set in California about two neighboring wives and the toxic and then deadly relationship that develops between them.
Ooh.
So that's Every Last Secret. That's on the writing front. But on the book world front, I joined forces with 120 best-selling authors over a year ago and a team of data scientists, and launched Authors AI, which is a company that uses, we have a artificial intelligence editor, developmental editor named Marlo, who's fantastic. And she reads your manuscript and gives back, like plots out your whole book and your plot arc digitally, and creates this beautiful 25-page report that talks about dialogue and pacing and characterization and things like that. Super interesting. So if you're interested in that, check out authors.ai. If you ever read The Bestseller Code, which was a book written and published 3 to 4 years ago by Dr. Matt Dockers, he's one of our co-founders. He's Marlo's creator, and it's a really interesting read that looks at commonalities in best-selling novels. That's authors.ai. And then we just launched Binge Books, which is a Goodreads competitor. I took everything that I love about Goodreads and everything that I don't love about Goodreads, and we're creating a new reader community. So I hope in 3 to 4 years when I come back, Carly, I hope to be talking to you guys about ways to promote your books on Binge Books. And I'm really excited for the future of book discovery and what we're going to do with Binge Books, and how we're going to, in the future, use Marlo to help fuel those book recommendations.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. You are up to some big things. I'm so excited. Yes. And, I would love to have you back on the show. I mean, really, I could have talked to you about all sorts of things today. I know. So please, yes, let's have you back on the show to talk about this, because I think those are some really exciting things on the horizon. And I imagine Bench Books is going to be much easier and more friendly to use, perhaps, than Goodreads.
You can change your cover all you want. So yes. That's the number one thing. That and Goodreads users were like, we want half stars. They don't like 4 stars and 5 stars. They wanted to be able to give a half star. So that was like top of the list. It was like, we got to have half stars on our reviews. So we're taking it one pain point at a time.
Well, that's good. I hope there might be one day where there are no stars and it's just text reviews, because how do you give anything stars, especially a creative?
Everybody is so different. Like, I read my book reviews. I'm in release mode right now. I read a review. The person's like raving about it. This is the best book I've ever read, and it's 4 stars. And I'm like, what does it take to get a 5-star review from you? This is the best book you've ever read. So
yeah, it is. Like, I feel like the stars are not as effective as they could be. I mean, it gives you a visual indicator, but the real stuff is in the copy, and just to not like it is just fine, but like just having to battle with leaving something stars, like just is like, I sit there and I'm like, how do I do that? It's like, it's a weird concept, but I have so enjoyed having you on the show, and let's have you back on. Could you let listeners know where they can find you and your books and all of your amazing author resources and get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So if you're interested in reading my books, alessandratorre.com is my website. If you're an author and you're interested in our free webinars or online articles or my classes, Alessandra Torre Inc., INK, like writinginc.com. And then authors.ai is the website for Marlo. If you want to have her take a look, we've got a free report that's like a smaller version of the report, and then our big report. Both are really affordable, and you can't get more affordable than free, but that's authors.ai. And then I hope to see you guys in your books at Binge Books.
Love it. And we will certainly support your efforts and what you're doing. And I will link to all those places in the show notes and provide some of the resources and some more additional information on Alessandra with the show notes. So thank you so much for the gift of your time. I wish you so much continued success in your author career. And I really am excited to have you back on the show. Thank you.
We'll do it. Thank you guys for having me. And thank you, Carly. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I hope you enjoy these Q&A sessions with wonderful equine authors who love all things horses and riding, just like me. Visit my website, carlykadecreative.com, where you can read the show notes, and make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you so much for your support. Want a free guide to secrets of horsebook authors? gallop over to carlykadecreative.com/wisdom to have author advice delivered instantly to your inbox. If you are an author who writes about horses and would like to be spotlighted, please let me know. Visit my contact page at carlykadecreative.com to fill out a request. I'd be happy to have you on the show too. Thank you for tuning in to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. See you next time. I'm your host, Carly Kade. Creative writing makes my spurs jingle.